AITA for leaving my husband at our lake house with his family. Story 1. My husband and I own a lake house that we spend most of our free time at when it's warm. We go there over the winter to check on it and do any basic maintenance that is required. It is not set up for winter living. We often invite friends and family over. We have almost 2 acres of land and there is lots of room to park an RV or set up a tent. The house has a septic tank for the toilet. All the other water goes to a gray water tank we use for the garden and lawn. We only use biosafe products. We have a very well-built and ventilated outhouse for when we have people over. So last weekend was the one where we went out to get the house ready for the spring and summer. We ordered the water truck to fill our tank. The propane guys to fill up that tank. We ran water through the pipes to flush them out and get them ready to use. And his mom and dad showed up with his brother and his family. Which would be fine except it was a cold and shitty weekend. So they didn't want to set up tents and stay outside. I asked him why they were here. He said that he told them we were going out and they sort of invited themselves out. They didn't bring out much besides some sandwiches and a bunch of beer. They didn't understand why we didn't have any of the water toys ready. There was still ice on the lake. I asked my husband to tell them that we were not ready for guests and that they needed to leave or help. He wouldn't do it. So I left. I said I needed to run to the store. I took my car and went to the grocery store 5 blocks from my house. It is an Asian market with great sushi. I think my husband expected me to just be going to the gas station a mile from the lake. I left him out there to prep the house and deal with his guests. He is upset now that I left without telling him that I wasn't coming back, that he had to do all the work by himself, that he had to clean the house by himself. He said his family thought I was rude not to stick around and host. I did not invite them. I told him that the house was not ready for guests. I told him that we did not have enough toilet paper for 8 people. He knew that we only had food for the 2 of us for the weekend. I think it's his fault and his problem. Should I have sucked it up and taken one for the team, or am I the asshole? Our advice. And there. In this situation, it seems like there was a breakdown in communication between you and your husband regarding expectations for the weekend at the lake house. However, it's important to address the issue without assigning blame and focus on finding a solution. Here's some advice. Communicate calmly, sit down with your husband, and have an open and honest conversation about what happened. Express how you felt about the situation and listen to his perspective as well. Avoid blaming each other and instead focus on understanding each other's feelings and concerns. Set boundaries, clearly communicate to your husband and his family what your expectations are for guests at the lake house in the future. Let them know if they need to ask permission before coming, or if there are specific times when the house is not available for visitors. Problem-solving, brainstorm together on how to handle similar situations in the future. Discuss strategies for managing unexpected guests and how to ensure everyone is comfortable and accommodated. Take responsibility. While it's understandable that you left because you felt overwhelmed, acknowledge your part in the situation and discuss how you could have handled it differently. Maybe there were alternative ways to address the issue without leaving abruptly. Apologize if necessary if you feel like your actions may have been perceived as rude or hurtful. Apologize to your husband and his family for any unintended consequences. However, also assert your boundaries and clarify why you felt it was necessary to leave. Remember, it's normal for couples to face challenges in communication and boundaries, but what's important is how you both work together to resolve conflicts and strengthen your relationship. First comment, AITA. The yokels on here saying adults communicate yada 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 are completely ignoring the fact that you and your husband had a plan for this weekend. His family showed up uninvited and empty-handed, and you asked your husband to tell them to leave. You communicated and reinforced your needs and expectations. He declined to consider you. Why should you have to push it further and give him an ultimatum that either his family leaves or you do? If he feels entitled to accommodate his family at your expense, then he's in no position to be upset that you left and that he had to do the work himself. You don't have to tell him the consequence of his choice in advance. Sucks that he had to do the work himself, but maybe next time he won't choose ingrates over his actual wife. Seriously, who shows up to an uninvited but free weekend holiday without food for everyone, including the hosts? And let me guess, they probably rarely, if ever, pitch in for utilities, cleaning supplies, or fuel for the toys. I personally think he owes you an apology in front of his family. Family, I just really need to apologize to my wife here. That weekend, we had plans to get the cabin ready for summer. We weren't in a position to host you, and I should have done the adult thing and asked you all to leave when you first arrived. I put my wife in a really unfair position where she came out looking like the bad guy, when really I was the one at fault. We're juggling a lot of plans and guests, so going forward all can come up when I have extended you an invite. Second comment. DNTA. There are a lot of Ashas in this story, but you are not one of them. Your husband needs to stand up to his overstepping family. Strict boundaries are needed to keep the freeloaders from running roughshod over the two of you. I would start by denying invitations until they have learned to be grateful and respectful. Edited to add, my husband and I had a similar situation. We owned a beach house that was considerably closer to the town his family lives in than to the state we live in. Each and every time he told his family he was coming that way to enjoy some time off, one of his siblings would show up with a suitcase and proceed to invite her kids to join her at our house. This same sibling used the emergency key to give her kids and their dogs a vacation in our home. Another sibling would invite friends to stay there when we weren't there. We found out when one of our guests met the friends getting out of their car. We finally had enough of the entitlement and sold the house. It just wasn't worth the constant interference anymore. Story 2. AITA for telling my parents and sisters that talking crap about the name my brother and Sil picked for their baby and blaming Sil for it all isn't doing what they think it is. So my twin brother and his wife Sil had a baby boy recently, and they chose the name Everest for their son. I knew the name prior to my nephew's birth, but nobody else did, and when my parents and siblings learned the name, they were really not okay. At first they thought it was a joke and asked for my nephew's real name, and then when my brother told them Everest was the real name, they acted like he had grown 5 heads. Shocked, horrified, and angry were very clear. They didn't actually say anything else then, but that might be due to Sil's family also being present. The next time we were all together, they couldn't wait to jump on my brother and Sil for giving my nephew such a crazy name. My brother told them the name was the name and nothing they said would change it. They asked Sil how she could do that to their grandson-nephew, that he didn't need to be burdened by her family's strangeness. The reason they said this is Sil and her family all have more unusual names. She told me before it goes back at least 3 generations, now 4, and that she always loved her name and the names in her family, and she always gravitated to those kinds of names. I know my brother always liked names that were different too, and were alike in that way. Maybe it's a twin thing, lol. My brother made the rest of our family leave. They expected me to go with them, but I stayed. This shocked them more. Apparently they have annoyed the crap out of my brother in the last few weeks, and he decided to block them for a while. Sil also blocked them because she was getting a lot of harassment from them, and it's very clear they blame her alone for the name. The rest of the family asked me to join them for a dinner, and this dinner was about how crazy my brother is for allowing this and how Sil is awful for doing this to my nephew. They mentioned how they sent several messages to both about the name being downright cruel. I chimed in and said talking crap about the name and blaming Sil for the name isn't doing what they think it is, and in actual fact they won't have a grandson or nephew if they don't learn to keep their opinions to themselves and apologize for being so cruel to Sil. They told me I should be on their side and imagine if we get a little pixie or fairy next, or what if we get a wave or something dumb like that. Because knowing Sil's family, it's likely. They told me I wasn't thinking of my nephew at all. AITA? Oh, our advice. No, you're not the asshole. It sounds like you're standing up for your brother and Sil in a situation where they're being unfairly criticized and harassed for their choice of name. Your family's reaction to Everest's name is overly judgmental and disrespectful, especially considering that it's a personal choice that should be respected. By speaking out against their behavior and standing by your brother and Sil, you're showing support for their autonomy and decision-making as parents. It's important for your family to understand that their comments and actions are hurtful and unwarranted. Encouraging them to apologize and reflect on their behavior is a step in the right direction towards repairing the relationship and fostering a more supportive and respectful environment for your nephew. Ultimately, it's your nephew's parents who have the final say in choosing his name, and it's important for your family to respect that decision, regardless of their personal opinions. First comment. NTA, your family's reaction to the name Everest is completely uncalled for. It's not only an established name but also has a legitimate origin. Criticizing it shows a lack of understanding and empathy. They need to realize that their behavior could potentially harm your nephew and strain family relationships. It's important to stand by your brother Sil and nephew and continue to defend their choice of name. Second comment. NTA. First, Everest isn't that crazy of a name. Most everyone will be able to pronounce it. It has no negative connotations associated with it, and it references a mountain ... It's just not that out there. More importantly, regardless of how out there the name is or isn't, you are right. They are bullying your brother and more so Sil, and all that comes from that is getting blocked and losing access to them and the newest member of the family. You are thinking of your nephew and how you want relationship with him. They are thinking that them being right and getting their way is more important than anything else, including the relationship they seem to want to have. Not only are you NTA, you are a good person for calling out this behavior, and my suggestion would be to follow up with your brother, and more importantly Sil. Just because she is getting the brunt of it, and let you know you are here for them, you like the name, and you want to be involved, and promise to be involved while respecting their wishes about the rest of your family, aka not sharing information, not letting them know when you are visiting the baby, etc. They probably feel pretty isolated, and having you affirm their feelings and that you are there for them would be so nice for them to hear.